My wife said, "I can't leave him," while I found her luggage already packed for his place. I stood there in the doorway of our bedroom, my mind scrambling to piece together the surreal scene unfolding in front of me. My wife, Sarah, was standing near the closet, avoiding my eyes, her back turned as she zipped up a suitcase. Her movements were swift, practiced, as if she was trying to get everything packed without me noticing. But it was too late. I'd already noticed. "Sarah," I said, my voice breaking on her name, the weight of everything crashing into me all at once. I took a step forward, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. "What the hell is going on?" She froze for a moment, her shoulders tensing, before she slowly turned around to face me. There was no shock on her face, no guilt, just weariness. Her expression looked like she had been carrying this weight for a long time, and the realization made something twist in my stomach. She looked tired of hiding it. I didn't want you to find out like this," she said, her voice soft, almost apologetic. But the words fell flat, and I couldn't understand how she could be so calm when everything was falling apart. "Like what, Sarah? That you've been cheating on me? That you're leaving me for him?" For him. The anger that had been simmering inside me boiled over, but it felt hollow, like an empty rage. I didn't even know where to direct it. At her, at myself, at the situation. "I'm not cheating on you," she said quickly, but there was no conviction in her voice. She looked down at her hands, then back at me. I'm just not happy, okay? I've been thinking about this for a while. Not happy. Not happy." The words stung, and I took a step back, like I couldn't bear to be so close to her. "So, you thought it was okay to just leave me? Without a word? You've been planning this, haven't you? And I had no clue. This entire time, I had no idea that I was that invisible to you." She flinched, her eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite read. "Guilt? Regret?" "It's not like that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, like she was trying to justify it. "It's complicated, okay? It's complicated, and I don't know how to explain it. But I didn't want excuses. I didn't want her words anymore. I wanted the truth." "Then explain it," I said, my tone sharp, almost desperate. "Explain how this wasn't something you just decided one day. Tell me what's been going on. Because I don't know what's worse, the fact that you're leaving me, or that you've been lying to my face this whole time." She opened her mouth like she was about to say something, but then closed it again, her gaze darting to the suitcase, then back at me. "I never meant to hurt you, okay? I never meant for it to happen like this," she said, her voice cracking. She wiped a tear from her cheek, but it only made me feel colder. "Who is he?" I asked, barely able to control the tremor in my voice. I was choking on the question. "Who is the guy? The one you've been seeing behind my back?" Her eyes flickered with something that almost looked like shame, but she didn't answer right away. She just stood there, biting her lip, her hands shaking. She was struggling. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that I already knew who it was. I didn't need her to say it. I already knew. "His name's James," she said finally, almost in a whisper. "I've been seeing him for a few months now. I didn't want to tell you like this. You've been seeing him for months?" My voice rose without meaning to, and the anger flooded back in. I had to physically stop myself from lunging at her, grabbing her, demanding she take it all back. My mind kept replaying those months, all the signs I had ignored, all the little things I thought were just bumps in the road. Late nights at work, the texts she would hide when I walked in the room, the distance between us that had grown wider and wider. I thought I was being paranoid. I thought I was overthinking it. But no, it was real. She had been slipping away from me the whole time. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. She stepped toward me, but I took another step back, my breath shallow. "I should have told you sooner. I should have ended it before this, but I was scared. I didn't know how to leave." "Leave," I repeated, the word tasting like poison. "You've already left, Sarah. Physically, emotionally, you've been gone for a while." She shook her head, looking up at me with those same eyes that used to be full of love, now filled with something I couldn't recognize. "I don't want to hurt you," she whispered again. "I never wanted this to happen." "Then why did it?" I asked, my voice raw. "Why did you do this to me? Why did you let go this far?" She opened her mouth to respond, but there were no words left. She couldn't fix this. No explanation would make this okay. Nothing would make it right. I turned away from her then, walking to the living room and sitting down on the couch. The emptiness of it all was suffocating. I wanted to scream, to yell, but what was the point? The damage was done. I looked at the pictures on the wall, the ones we'd taken during vacations, anniversaries, family gatherings, and I realized how hollow they all were. That life I thought we had, the one I thought was real, it was all a lie. She followed me into the living room, but she didn't sit. She just stood by the door, wringing her hands nervously. "I didn't want to hurt you, I swear," she said, but I wasn't sure if I could even believe her anymore. "Then why didn't you stop?" I asked quietly, my eyes fixed on the floor. "Why didn't you stop before it went this far?" "I don't know," she said, her voice cracking. I got lost. I don't know how to explain it. The silence between us felt like it was growing wider by the second. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't bear it. It was too much. Finally, I stood up. "I think you should go," I said, my voice low but firm. "You've made your choice, and I think I've made mine." "Jace, please." She stepped forward, but I held up my hand, stopping her. "No, I don't want to hear it." I shook my head. "I can't do this right now. I need you to leave. I need some space to think." She hesitated for a moment, like she was going to say something else, but then she nodded, her eyes filled with tears. She grabbed her suitcase and walked to the door, but before she left, she turned to me one last time. "I'm sorry, Jace. I never meant to hurt you." But I couldn't even respond. I didn't have the words. Instead, I just watched as she walked out, the door closing softly behind her. I sat back down on the couch, staring blankly at the empty space where she had been just moments before. The silence felt deafening. My mind was numb. My heart was shattered, and I didn't know what to do next. The only thing I knew for sure was that my life had just been ripped apart, and there was no going back. Part 2. I sat on the couch, staring at the spot where Sarah had stood just moments ago, feeling like a shell of myself. The sound of the front door closing still echoed in my ears, but everything else was silent. The silence in our apartment was crushing, like it was pressing in on me from every side, and I couldn't breathe. It was so goddamn quiet that I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the ticking of the clock on the wall, the mundane background noise that suddenly felt impossibly loud. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to face the mess she had left behind, the life that was now unrecognizable to me. But at the same time, I couldn't just stay in this haze of disbelief. I had to make sense of what had happened. My head was spinning, my heart racing as all the pieces of the last few months snapped together, forming a picture I never wanted to see. How had I not seen it? I kept asking myself that question over and over again. Every little thing that had seemed off suddenly made sense. The way she'd pulled away from me, the late nights at work, the excuses to be busy when I needed her. I had been blind, too busy with my own life and our routine to notice she was slipping away. She hadn't just fallen out of love with me. No, she'd been checking out long before I had any idea, and I had let it happen. I had just kept pushing forward, assuming everything was fine. But now, with the weight of the truth pressing down on me, I felt like a fool. I tried to push the thoughts away, but they kept coming back. The images of her with James, the secret texts, the lies she'd woven into every conversation we'd had. And most painful part, I hadn't even seen it coming. I had thought we were happy. I had thought we were fine. I finally forced myself to stand, my legs shaky like I'd been standing on them for hours, but the only thing I could think about was the packed suitcase still sitting near the door. I didn't know why it bothered me so much. It was just stuff, clothes, toiletries, the things she'd taken with her, but it was the physical evidence of everything she'd been hiding from me. It felt like a slap in the face, as if she had planned this moment for weeks, months, and was just waiting for the right time to tell me. And now it was here, and I had no idea how to pick up the pieces. I grabbed my phone off the table, my hand trembling, and I opened her contact info. For some reason, I felt compelled to scroll through our messages. Maybe I was looking for a sign, some hint of what had been going on. Maybe I just wanted to torture myself, but I couldn't stop. I scrolled back to the earliest messages, weeks ago when we'd still been talking about our plans for the future, about our weekend trips, and what we were going to cook for dinner. It all seemed so innocent then, so full of the promise of normalcy. But now it felt like a cruel joke. How had she been able to pretend for so long? One message stood out. It was from just a few days ago. It was something we had discussed, some small, trivial thing. But as I reread it, I realized something. She hadn't even bothered to ask me how I was doing, how my day had been. She just sent the message, quick and detached, like it was nothing. And I had responded as if everything was normal. We had both been acting like everything was normal. But it wasn't. I put the phone down, fighting the nausea that was rising in my throat. This isn't me, I kept telling myself. I wasn't the type of person to fall apart over something like this. I had to pull myself together. I had to do something. So, I did what I always did when life got hard. I went for a walk. I needed to clear my head, to get away from the apartment for a while, even if it didn't feel like it would make a difference. I grabbed my jacket, slipped on my shoes, and stepped out into the cold night air. The walk was slow. It was almost like I was on autopilot, my feet carrying me through the streets while my mind ran in circles. I passed by the same places I'd walked with Sarah so many times. Our coffee shop, the park we'd taken our dog to, the little diner where we'd had our first date. Now, those places felt like they belonged to someone else, some version of myself that had died the moment she walked out of the door. It was like I was walking through a memory, a ghost of a life I didn't recognize anymore. I didn't know where I was going, or if I even wanted to go anywhere. All I could think about was the pain in my chest, the emptiness that was starting to settle in. I had tried to be a good partner, a good husband. But somewhere along the way, Sarah had stopped being honest with me. She'd stopped being the woman I thought I knew. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. The anger burned through the haze of disbelief and started to take shape. I was angry at Sarah for betraying me, for sneaking around behind my back. I was angry at James for being the guy who had been there for her when I wasn't. But more than anything, I was angry at myself. I had missed the signs. I had let her slip away, and now everything was falling apart. I ended up in the park, standing by the same bench where Sarah and I had once sat on a lazy Sunday afternoon, sipping coffee and talking about our future. I felt a pang in my chest as I stared at the bench, almost like I was looking at the last remnants of our marriage scattered across the grass. It was then that I realized how much I wanted answers. I wanted to know how we got here, how she got here. Was there ever a point when she knew she was falling out of love with me? Was there a moment when she made the decision to leave? Or had I been living in a fantasy world the whole time? I needed closure, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the only way I was going to get it was if I confronted her. I couldn't keep sitting in this limbo, wondering what went wrong. I had to know, so I made up my mind. I was going to call her. I didn't know how I was going to get through the conversation without breaking down, but I had to try. I had to ask her, point blank, why she'd done this. What had happened? Where had I gone wrong? I walked back to the apartment, my heart pounding in my chest. It was too quiet when I entered the door. It felt so foreign, so hollow. I grabbed my phone and dialed her number. It rang 3 times before she picked up. Jace. Her voice sounded small, distant. She sounded like she hadn't expected me to call. I need to know what happened, Sarah, I said, my voice low, almost pleading. I need to understand why. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end, but she didn't speak for what felt like an eternity. Then finally, she sighed, and when she spoke, her voice cracked. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she said softly. I never meant to hurt you, but I wasn't sure I believed her anymore. Not after everything. You've already hurt me, I said quietly, swallowing the lump in my throat. You're already gone, Sarah. We're already gone. And just like that, I felt the weight of it all. The finality. The fact that this chapter of my life was closing and I didn't even get to write the ending. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know how I was going to move on from this. But I knew one thing for sure. I was done chasing someone who had already left me. And as much as it hurt, that was the first step toward healing. And that was something, at least,